full virtual CFO services in in Montreal. And as you may understand, we're both using ApprovalMax and Fathom as key part of our tech stack. So I'm here to talk about my experience using those softwares and others to plan budgets and understand forecasts a little better.
Perfect. Thank you both. Yeah, really excited to get into the thick of it today. I always like the topic budgets just as an aside, because I feel like it's such a crucial part of any kind of business, but sometimes actually surprisingly goes kind of overlooked. I always use like a car analogy. It's like you have a tank of gas, but you need to know how much gas you have left with the fuel gauge. And if you don't have that, you have no idea what's left in the tank. And that's kind of how I view budget. So I'm keen to kind of hear both your opinions as we go through this this webinar and yeah, get into the thick of it. So quick agenda just to outline what's going to happen today. So introductions obviously we've just done. There'll be some quick polls, nothing too strenuous, I promise, just to get us a little bit of a flavor in terms of who's on the call today, and then we can maybe obviously tailor some answers to your answers if applicable, of course. Then we're going to go into budgeting basics. So, what is it? How to set it up? Some people on this call probably know this already, which is great, but just in case, we're going to kind of lay down some of that foundational groundwork just for completeness, essentially. Then we're going to go into some tips and tricks from Felix in terms of how you can actually get the most out of your budget for the kind of financial year coming up. And then we're going to hear from James about how Fathom can help you out with some of those tips specifically. And then a quick bit on ApprovalMax by myself. And then plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So as I mentioned at the top, just in case you missed that first little bit, any questions, ping it in the Q&A and we'll happily pick that up during the presentation. So I think we're going to move on to the first poll, hopefully. Nice and simple, this one. I always like watching like the live results come in here. I feel like they should share that in Zoom with everyone live. It'd be kind of cool.
We couldn't have a more even result.
Yeah, that is essentially split right down the middle. Interesting. Perfect. So we'll end that one there again, 50-50, which is yeah, very interesting actually. And now if we go on to the next poll, which I believe is also the next slide. Perfect. So obviously businesses, bottom two are for you, and accountants and bookkeepers in practice, top three are for you, just to get a little bit of an idea in terms of size and number of orgs there.
More of a distribution on this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. There we go. We'll share those directly, so I have to read them all out because it is quite the spread. But yeah, quite a good mix of people on the webinar today. So hopefully everyone can take away at least one or two kind of tips and tricks. Yeah, following the webinar. Perfect. So budgeting basics. So I'm just going to hand actually directly over to Felix here. So Felix, presumably, obviously you are budgeting kind of day in, day out, and with all your different clients that you bring on board. So it'd just be great for you to almost set the scene and explain in your opinion like what is a budget and why it's important for you and your client base.
It's great to see that we have both business owners and accounting firms, and to have, it seems, accounting firms that deal with a lower volume of clients and some that deal with a larger volume of clients. To be honest with you, I've dealt with multiple businesses here in Canada, ranging from 1 employee to 100 employees. And I understand that, or I know that a budget is the basis of business success. We try to implement budgets with every client that we implement, and we try to bring them on board to remind them of the value of watching spending accounts, understanding revenues. So basic budgeting is actually estimating your company's revenue. So we always start with revenue. Some people just start budgeting under thinking about spending only, but we have to forecast a little and think about and revenue growth, understanding how some dip in the market could affect our whole budget. And then we go right to understanding objectives from the client. So some clients like to create budgets for all their GL accounts and they want to track everything down. But we feel the best way to set up a budget, if you haven't done so in the past, or if you're new to this financial control, is to actually start with simpler data and think about objectives that you have for the year. So are you looking to spend on expenditure? Are you looking to spend for supporting a strategic objective that you have? Do you want to buy out some new cars or trucks to operate, or do you actually need more of an influx on your marketing side to help your sales people? Budgeting is actually the best way we feel to merge both accounting and operations, and to try to keep everyone reminded every month, every 3 months, every year of their accountability in the numbers. It's easy to just think of budget as just an accountant's tool or a financial strategic tool, but what we like to do here at Le Contrôleur is to produce budgets that actually talk to operation people, that they can understand, that they can see it in their actual day-to-day work, so that they can be reminded of objectives, reminding of spent they've been doing in the last month or weeks, and to plan expected out of the plan types of expenses. So usually we see people start budgeting and they try to be really restrictive. They try to be really aggressive in how they want to reduce spending. But budgeting is about real life. It's about understanding that there's some part of the plan that aren't going to be working out perfectly in the end, and we need to account for it. We need to be to have reliable data to understanding, but we need to be realistic in what's coming in the upcoming month. And that's one big caveat I've seen of businesses we've started working with that already had budgets that were so restrictive that not only accounting were having a great deal of pressure, but they were dealing this pressure on the operational people too, that needs to be included in this big discussion. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, I actually just have a quick question for you off the back of that, and that makes a lot of sense. Just curious, in terms of, I guess, clients who come to you, or prospective clients, and say, hey, Felix, interested in your services. Do you find most of them come to you with an existing budget? Is it quite like a common place for them to have that in situ already, or is it something you have to essentially introduce and educate some of these prospective clients on?
Great question. I'll start with telling everyone a little bit about what type of clients we deal with. It's in our name. We're called Le Contrôleur. It means financial control. So clients that are coming our way, or leads that are coming our way, are usually business that are growing, that have real objectives they want to go forward. They're looking to do some acquisitions. They're looking for mergers. They're looking to have a new office built for producing more operations. We're dealing with clients that have a specific case. So businesses from, let's say, 10 employees to 80 employees that are really in this growth strategy. You would think those companies would be the one having budgets, having forecasts, having a real spending management. They don't. We have, let's say, 10% of the clients that are coming our way that already have a well-done budget that they're actually following. I would say a little over than 10% having a budget, but they're not looking at it. That's a typical case too. So having a budget built out. They usually do it annually. It's a great time to do a settlement on what's the year has to offer, but then they never follow up on it. They never look at it till the end of the year afterwards that they're looking to see how they did on the exam. We don't feel that budgeting is an exam. It's a tool that we can use every month or quarterly to merge, like I said, operations and finance. So you would think there'll be more budgeting in the small business area, but unfortunately, I haven't seen this too much coming from businesses that are actually growing. So it's surprising.
Lots of work to do then for content like this to, I guess, get the word out there. So yeah, we'll keep trying to push that agenda for sure, because it is a critical part of the
Of course.
financial solution. So on the screen, everyone can now see there's kind of some tips to set up a budget. So Felix already touched on some of this, starting with like revenue and kind of working down to your cost base in your P&L. I mean, Felix, do you typically go through this like 1, 2, 3, 4, just like this, or is there anything else that you'd probably add here in terms of context?
We usually start with revenue for sure. Fixed costs and variable costs, it's kind of the same file for us as to understanding what's the biggest case for the client. Like, are they actually looking to build are they working on their gross margin? Are they working on specific projects they have during the year, like I said, for marketing or for sales that are actually more touched on the fixed costs? One thing we really like to do, and I think James will be speaking to this later on, is building a budget or a forecast that's not only through P&L, because revenues and costs are one thing, but how they affect your balance sheet and your cash flow statement is it's a less understood area of accounting, and I feel it's a more important one. We're dealing with clients, like I said, that have real growth. Their revenue isn't usually the problem. It's actually supporting their growth through debt, through cash inclusion. So having an idea of not only budgeting our profit and loss, but then venturing into understanding how it affects our balance sheet and cash flow statement, which would be a more, let's say, advanced feature, but also a more advanced process to go through as an accountant dealing with an outsourced client. But it's even more important.
Perfect. No, thank you for that. So I think we've got another poll coming up just to get a bit of a flavor in terms of what software people are potentially using. But just whilst that's being run, Felix, it'd be good just for context for the audience to sort of know kind of what tools you're using in terms of your app stack, if you could shed some light on that.
Of course. We started the business 5 years ago, my partner and I, and we've made the decision quite early on to be solely on QuickBooks Online as our core GL. It was the best integrated software, or the software that allowed more integration. It was easier to understand. We have the language barrier here in Montreal, and they have a great French version of the software. Everything was pointing to using QuickBooks Online. So we're still today solely on QuickBooks Online, but we use a vast app stack of applications that are connected to it, some to automate AP, some to automate AR, some to automate reporting that we're doing every month with clients, some to automate approval process for bills to pay, just like ApprovalMax is helping us with. So we're using a lot of applications connected to it, but core GL for us is QuickBooks Online. And I see that the majority, or the vast majority of people listening are on QuickBooks. So that's exactly for you.
Yeah, interesting results from that poll. I think QBO is, in every webinar I've done in the US and Canada, is typically the go-to, I'd say. I'd be curious if any of the 5 who said other are willing to kind of put it in the chat. I'd be curious just to know what they're on, whether it's maybe QB desktop or something else. That'd be interesting just to have that additional context for sure. So moving on to James. So James, it'd be good just to, again, you walk us through how Fathom fits into all this. So, Felix has mentioned there's budgeting and forecasting. I guess like what's the difference? How is it useful for those who might be new to Fathom as a software?
We
Is
can't
the
hear you,
audio
James.
okay? No, there's an audio issue, James. I was trying to work out if that's just my earbuds there for a minute.
No, that was me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, false start, but you
Okay,
got
cool.
the practice round in, so over to you now.
Yeah, that's right. It just decides to shut off on me. But yeah, so Fathom is basically a suite of products, all under the financial planning and analysis umbrella. So, and everything's integrated together. So you get dashboarding, reporting, forecasting features. And specifically, we'll be talking today more about the budgeting and forecasting side because that's the most relevant. But Fathom allows you to do all of that in one product. And kind of speaking to what Matt was talking about and Felix with the app stack, just to kind of visualize where we sit in things. So we're really on the outgoing side of the data flow. So we're really pulling from QuickBooks and Xero. We're bringing in that summary financial data, and then we're reporting on it, allowing you to create budgets and forecasts using those books. And so, really critical to have clean data, up-to-date data, good books. And so, apps like ApprovalMax and others really enable that. And great firms like Felix's, make sure that data is good, so that you have a good foundation to actually build off of and report and create a budget off of that's accurate. But before I kind of go into Fathom's budgeting and forecasting features, first, I kind of wanted to share our perspective on the difference between a budget and forecast. We get that question a lot. What is the difference between them? And so, do you mind just popping those slides back up? But basically, a budget we see as more of a goal or an ideal state for the financial year, and so it's really what you're measuring to is the best way to put it in our mind, and it acts as a baseline for comparing your results. And like Felix said as well, for a budget, typically that's just the P&L. So that's your revenue and cost of sales and expenses. It typically doesn't incorporate the balance sheet. It can, but typically it's a P&L only projection. And often it remains static throughout the year. So a lot of times, the budget is created at the start of the year and it's measured to throughout that year. And then that differs a bit from a forecast, where our perspective is it's used to project more of the actual expectations for the business and for the P&L, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. So it's incorporating all of those financials and connecting them together so that when you are forecasting the P&L, you're seeing the effects of that through the balance sheet and cash flow statement and how that's hitting your cash on hand. And so that's really critical difference. The other thing with a forecast is it's often a rolling projection. So it's often reforecasted on quarterly basis is probably the most common. But looking at what has happened in the past quarter and then creating a new forecast off of those results to give you the most accurate picture. And Fathom can help you do that. The next slide there. So basically on budgeting in Fathom specifically, what we're here to talk about mostly, essentially with Fathom, you can create a budget or you can import a budget that you already have and report on it. So you can do both. And in terms of how you create a budget, essentially you would use Fathom's forecasting tool to create that budget, and then you can save it down as your budget in Fathom. You could also export it and bring that into your source accounting system as well if you wanted to. But essentially, the benefits of doing your budgeting in Fathom would be that Fathom updates daily from your accounting system, so you always have an up-to-date picture of actuals that you can project off of and make sure that you're staying up to date on that budget or forecast. You can also create a budget very quickly. If you don't have one yet, with Fathom, there are some features in forecasting called Quick Start that allow you to build a budget in minutes. You can use your actuals. You can apply some simple rules, like say increasing revenue by 5%, increasing costs by 3%, and it will build that budget out for you based on those rules. And so you can get started very quickly. And then the other piece is that you, as I kind of alluded to, you get the budgeting and forecasting all in one system. So you can have a budget and report that actual versus budget variance on a regular basis. And you can also have a forecast that you use to project out from your current results. So you can have both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And then just a little bit more on forecasting, and specifically in Fathom. So I'll go through the main benefits of doing forecasting in Fathom as opposed to doing it in a spreadsheet or another system. So the first thing is it's really efficient to create a forecast and maintain one with Fathom. Because Fathom is staying up to date daily or monthly, if that's your choosing, it's always bringing in the most recent actuals and rolling forward that forecast automatically for you. So you're not having to download results, paste them into a spreadsheet, change your rules, fix your formulas, all the spreadsheet nightmares. So it's doing all that for you and keeping it in sync so that ideally your forecast is not becoming irrelevant over time. The other piece is that on top of that kind of baseline forecast you can create, you can also add detailed plans. So Fathom has some features that allows you to add what we call micro forecasts, and they're essentially modular forecasts within the broader forecast. And it's really cool because you can add a specific event or plan in, say, investing in the business in the form of marketing or brand building. Could be a financing activity like refinancing a loan or getting a new loan. Could be hiring a salesperson or a team of people. You can add those in as micro forecasts and see the effects of those activities throughout the financial statements. Again, tying to cash on the balance sheet, cash flow in the business. And then you can visualize those plans. The visual there kind of shows the roadmap in Fathom, but each of those activities can be its own event, essentially, that you can move and rearrange within your business plan. So you can really fine tune the timing of things and what you expect out of those specific activities to give you the most accurate picture. And then finally, the ability to create multiple scenarios in the forecast is really important. You may have a baseline case for how things will go, but there are also other factors that are out of our control that can affect your business. Like right now, inflation is probably the best example. At least in the US, we don't know if it's going up or down. And so being able to create multiple scenarios that would allow you to see what happens if it were to go up by a given percentage or down gives you clarity on what the road looks like ahead, depending on different inputs. So that's a big piece. And then you can compare those scenarios to make your decision. So the whole idea here is giving you the information to make better decisions and building different scenarios with your plans as well as external factors overlaid can really, really help with that. But before I hand it over, I just wanted to pose the question to Felix. I mean, I just talked about Fathom, but I know, Felix, you use Fathom quite a bit in your practice. So would love to hear kind of from you how you're using it.
Yeah, we started using Fathom a long time ago, even when some of those features weren't actually in the software. So we've seen them developed. James didn't really talk about the 3 pillars, let's say, of Fathom, but there's one which is analysis, which we use. We use 3 modules: analysis, reports, and forecasting. Since, like I said, our clients are growth businesses that have real objectives, we always have a monthly recurrence with them that we can talk about decisions, objectives, present a report. So every month they're receiving a report a couple of days before a presentation. Then we sit down together with them to understand their business cases, either good month, bad month, understanding problems that could have occurred, and to actually present it to them. We also use the forecast module as the budget. So the forecasting that James talked about, it's really easy to start to build it up and to have a better idea, like you said, of not only P&L, but also to follow through to balance sheet and cash flow statement, and what variations in your budgeting or in your forecasting will have on your actual cash inflow or outflow at the end of the year. So we're using this as the budget. So James talked about the fact that you could create a budget and like import it from QuickBooks or create it directly in Fathom. We use the Fathom tool to produce it. Yeah, so it's an important tool in presentation and clients documentation that they receive from our firm every month.
I think the audio might be going again, James.
We're back. Can you hear me now? Great. Yeah, just thanks for that, Felix. Just wanted to show really quick as an example of a Fathom report, just to give the audience an idea of what you can create. So this is a Fathom sample report we created to kind of display the budgeting functionality within a report. It's created for a coffee roasting company. And you can incorporate a lot of different elements into a report. We have some text in here, some commentary for the business or management, and then we can see a number of different components here. Basically, the main profit and loss metrics and how they're comparing versus the budget. Just to quickly highlight what the performance was like in the period. Of course, you have to have the budget variance. So this is showing the most recent month in this case, completed month versus budget and variance here, as well as a projection of the year-to-date actuals so far plus the budgeted total. So that's going to give you your year-end projection. Beyond that, we've got some charts that show revenue versus budget, expense versus budget comparison. You can see the differential there visually, as well as some detail explaining. And then finally, we've got a cost of sale projection. This is actually using the forecast, and it's showing cost of sales actuals for 3 months, and then projecting out the forecast base case, as well as a best case and worst case overlaid there. So you can actually see different outcomes. And this could be cost of sales, or it could be net income, or any other financial metric. So hopefully that gives you just a quick picture of what's possible for budget reporting.
Perfect. Thanks for that, James. Super interesting just to hear how obviously Felix uses it for that kind of monthly almost operational cadence to kind of keep clients on track and measure, and also how the budget kind of intersects with forecasting. So that's definitely a useful tool. I see some questions coming in, which is awesome. So we'll make sure there's time at the end for us to handle it. I'll quickly cover off just a couple of things about ApprovalMax at a fairly high level. We can hear from Felix how he leverages it, and then we can get into the Q&A. So for those of you who've never heard of ApprovalMax, as I mentioned at the top, we implement essentially robust financial controls as part of your AP process. So you raise a bill or PO, whatever it is, in QuickBooks, it comes into ApprovalMax. So you don't have to have everyone having access to your core financial data, which is very beneficial for obvious reasons. And then you can have your decision matrix. So up to a certain level, maybe James has to approve it, and then maybe Felix is James's boss. So if it goes to another level, Felix approves it, down to the classes and locations, tracking categories, etc., GL codes. So you can map all of that out in the software, and it's all in one place. You have to play email ping pong, or even back in print off a physical piece of paper and ask for a signature and put it in a binder somewhere in the back closet. So all in one interface, and basically preventing that potential fraud, misfiring payments, and duplicating payments potentially. There's a couple of things on screen here as well, benefits. So saves you a bunch of time. You go paperless, so you're helping yourself and the planet. Speeds up the invoice approvals by like a crazy amount. Even just the speed and time saving. We've got a case study, in Ontario kind of direct business, and I think it's like the equivalent of 200,000 Canadian dollars a year saved just in time and the speed alone. So it does add up when you kind of multiply that across the business. And audit trails, I mean, dear to an accountant's heart, but there's a lot of audit features in there. So you can see exactly what happened and when, workflow history. So we're really trying to ironclad that whole process for either you directly if you're a business, or for you and your clients if you're an accountant or bookkeeper in practice. And budget checking. So gonna have to caveat this, but it's kind of like also an announcement. So budget checking the ApprovalMax. So there's like the core element of it is, of course, making sure the documents are getting processed and approved correctly. So there's enough budget for you to obviously approve it, and then it goes to the CFO, whatever needs to be done, back in the QBO, fired off, and the payment can go out. For the 4 of you, I believe I got my numbers right, who did answer that you use 0, there's a feature which is specifically within the product to check against the budget. For everyone who said QBO, it's coming. It's in development at the minute, so watch this space. And the next slide after I go over this one, we'll actually have a quick screenshot of how you can expect that to essentially look. Right here. So you can see when you're approving something, how much budget is left, and you can put in multiple budgets and make sure it's assigned to the right one. So we're giving you that full visibility, not only to have the confidence to, essentially make sure it goes through that rigorous process that you've defined and goes to the right people, and there's no bottlenecks in the business. But you can also see it versus the budget here as well, which is great. And just before we go over some useful tips that we'll keep in the background here anyway. So Felix, how do you kind of use ApprovalMax, for kind of budget related things and just kind of financial controls?
There's one reason I'm really happy to be with both Fathom and ApprovalMax today is because, like I said earlier, we use a vast tech stack with our clients, and it's rare that we implement an app that has the same value for us that it has for the clients. Like usually we can implement apps that have great values for us by automating accounting tax, but the client don't necessarily see it. But for both ApprovalMax and Fathom, clients get full value. So for Fathom, they can actually see the report, they can interact in the software. But for ApprovalMax, it's an amazing difference because they can actually follow through on approvals, have reports of who's owing whose approval, who are we waiting for, seeing it consolidated in only one section and not having approvals through emails that we lose every time. So we use ApprovalMax for all our PO approvals and all our bills to pay approvals. So We create approval workflows with clients so that they can easily know what type of invoices goes to who. We implement the audit report, just like Matt has said, to the actual bill in QuickBooks so that everyone can see who's approved it. And it saved us not only ample time by just going through a faster process, but it also saved so much time for our client that had to go through emails or go through SharePoint files to understand what they need to approve or not. It's all into one roof that they can easily just accept, reject, give us comments or modifications to do on the accounting side. It's all under one roof, and that made a big difference not only for us but for client. It's great to have Fathom making the presentation at the end of the month and having this big cherry on the sundae at the end of the month, but we wouldn't be able to do the financial control we're doing and the quality of report we're pushing to our clients every month if we wouldn't have those controls initially. So knowing that we have reliable data, no duplicates, easier understanding of which invoices we're waiting for approval at the end of the month, it shrinked our month-end procedure time by days. And it's a big difference for clients to have their reports and their presentation on the 12th of the month or on the 23rd day of the month. There's a big difference, a big gap in days that they can actually make greater decision, change some things in the business that aren't fully in line with either their budget or their actual operations. So having able to short the time that we're actually doing month end and being able to have a full software that the client can use, it gave us a really good add to our client services to be able to work in this platform with our clients and not just waiting for them, but actually being a collaborative tool around approvals. Does that make any sense, Matt?
Yeah, dude. I actually really like the point about baking the sundae or whatever, because it's a really important one, I think, for people to kind of take away, which is there's a lot of different elements of the process here. There's the pre-accounting, the post-accounting, and all of it is what you can commercialize and productize essentially. So, having Fathom to track that budget month on month is super important and do all the forecasting kind of tips that James mentioned. But there's also obviously the core QBO. Are you going to use Dex to get the OCR and ApprovalMax for the financial control? So there's all these different elements. I think if you view the process like that and evaluate your apps against what you need in that process, and hopefully you can kind of get towards a solution that kind of suits you and your firm or your business, like Felix has at his. So I hope this is on the next slide. If not, it's coming up. If anyone, I see a lot of questions coming in, which is great, but I always say this on every webinar and every event I've ever done. It can look good, it can sound good, like try it, give it a go. There's free trials for a reason. There's no credit card details that are going to click in at the end or anything. Add your clients, add your businesses. I'm sure James won't disagree with this, but rinse the customer success department, like ask them to give you the demo, the training, really put it through its paces and see if it's a good fit for your firm and or your business. So definitely take us up on that. We'll send some details afterwards, later today or tomorrow, whenever it is, with links to that. So it's of interest, great. If not, that's cool as well. Hopefully you took some tips from the session today. So I've got some questions, mainly for James, I think, looking at this. So I'll just read a few of these out to you, James. Hopefully none are too kind of curveball-y in nature. So first one, does Fathom have the option to create an annual budget, not a monthly one?
Yeah, definitely. So the budget is in Fathom is always going to break down to the month, but you can always view it on the annual basis. So it would be pretty simple to create an annual budget and view it annually if you wanted to, but it will always sort of break down to the month as well.
Nice. Similar kind of quick one here from Dan. He said, does Fathom cover multi-entity forecasting?
Yes. So currently what you can do is you can create, if you have multiple entities imported to Fathom, you can create a forecast for each one. And then the way to consolidate those is actually through the budget. And so you would save down those forecasts to budget, and then those budgets will roll up into a consolidated budget. So that's one way to do it. The other option is to actually create a forecast at the group level. If you wanted to do that as well, you could create a forecast for the consolidated group specifically. So there's kind of those two options depending on which way you want to go.
For both accounting firms that deal with multiple clients in the same entity under the same roof, let's say, the consolidation panel in Fathom it's a great tool for clients to understand their whole picture. They're used to having a consolidated group through Excel sheets and not being able to quickly flow to different quarters or different month or different years or make comparison to or variances to budget. The consolidation tool in Fathom gives great leverage for multi-entity businesses.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I'm just trying to work out which one to go to next, because there's quite a few coming in here, which is great.
Yeah.
So James, anyone there that you want to pick, or do you want me to just pick one out randomly?
Sure. Yeah, I see one for you there at the end too, but I can handle one. One question from Christina: if I have multiple classes in one set of QuickBooks, can I create a budget by class and have a consolidated one? So yes, actually. So we just recently released this. We're really excited about it, but you can create budgets by class. So you can import up to 60 classes into Fathom from QuickBooks. And then you can import a budget from QuickBooks for each one. You could also create a forecast in Fathom and then basically use that as your class level budgets. The forecasting tool itself does not break down to the class level currently, so it's just for the overall company. But you could create multiple scenarios. There's ways to do it, and we'd be happy to walk you through doing that.
Perfect. So there's a couple ApprovalMax ones here that I'll just tick off hopefully pretty quickly. So a question from Joel about when the budget updates. So when the bill's been approved, just so there's not multiple bills approved that then obviously go over the budget, and then the payment kind of messes it up when they all go through if they've been approved. So it happened kind of live in there, and it'll update in QBO kind of separately, so you won't have to go over budget through the UI essentially. And for Danielle, great to hear you like ApprovalMax. That's always a good start. How do you get access to the budget feature? Yeah, so if you are using Xero currently, just basically reach out to me or respond to any kind of email from our team. We can kind of have a call and get you set up on that. If you're using QBO, watch this space. It is being built currently, so it is not quite there just yet, but it'll be essentially the same function, but for QBO. So that will be an upcoming release that I'm not entirely sure I should have been saying, but anyway, now you all know. Cool. James, any other ones you want to take there? Do you want to take any offline? Because some of them are pretty detailed. Your call.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a couple great questions in here about Fathom that are more detailed. So what I'll do is follow up directly with you guys who anybody who asks a question about Fathom will reach out directly and get you an answer.
Perfect. And if anyone, as I said at the start, if anyone's watching us on demand, or you think that you kind of forgot to ask a question, by all means reach out to myself, James, or Felix. We're all happy to help out with any questions that you do have. Actually, I noticed one from Sharon, the slide deck. Yeah, we can arrange for that. So we'll send a recording out to everyone afterwards. If you want slide decks, that's fine too. We can arrange for that. No worries. Perfect. So thank you everyone for joining. Great to see so much engagement in Q&A at the end, in particular as well. Huge thanks to James from Fathom for sharing his insights and explaining how Fathom can help you with your budgeting and also forecasting process for that matter. And massive thanks as well to Felix for sharing his knowledge and how he's using both tools and how he kind of approaches it with clients. That's been super insightful. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it, and have a good rest of your Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.